restaurant job where I didn't feel like somebody was trying to cut in on a good table that I would have. Like, I remember having just a weird time moving here because people would go mess with the computers and take something from me that they knew would be good and stuff like that. Huh. And I remember finding that out, like, somebody that came off like a really cool person and wanted to be a friend. And I was like, somebody told me that, you know, they went and changed the reservations so that was going to them. And I was just like, I didn't get mad. Because, again, money is not the drive for me. Like I like working enough to like comfortably live, but I don't need to have a shit ton of money because my mom gives me stuff at Christmas. And yeah, so like I don't need to like that's never what I want to work as much as I have to, and then I want to go do comedy. So I remember, but that's just a note in my head on that person. Like I found out about it and I didn't go like get mad. I didn't go call them out. I didn't go snitch on them. I was just like, that's what they do, and that's fine.
I think a good company is one that creates a set of incentives that discourage that kind of behavior, because we're all working to try to make this as high-performing a group as possible.
Right.
And that is destructive. Like, that's going to make you quit that job. That's going to make people notice a bad vibe between the wait staff. It's going to create all these weird side effects that are bad for the company.
Yeah.
So if the company lets that kind of thing happen and doesn't figure out creative ways around it, you know, whatever weird tip structures or whatever weird things that allow you guys to try to navigate that better, then it's just bad business.
Well, that can translate into I feel like that analogy works well for improv too, in the sense of like certain people like and this was my attitude at the very beginning, and I had to like and I dropped it really early on in level 1, was monopolizing the laughter, like going up and just being like, I need to be the funniest person up here right now, because that's, you know, because everybody told me I'm funny and I need to make sure they're right. And I remember like that being my attitude for maybe the first 2 classes, and then like, you know, slowly realizing that I could do that, but then there's like 12 people in my class that I'm just leaving out to dry, you know. And I just and so I was like, and it was way cooler when I would just, when it would all come together, as opposed to just me getting a bunch of laughs and somebody like having to feed me shit to get laughs, as opposed to like just bouncing stuff off. And I was just like, that is a much more complete feeling than it is for me to go up and just make a room full of students on my same level laugh, you know, and like watching the teacher just being like, all right, good for you, I guess. But, you know, like there were 4 people in that scene and you just ran around them, you know, so like there's that like that modesty that you can like kind of pick up, and I was very excited to learn that, you know, because like it's one of those things where I was like, well, I know how to be funny, so I'm not really sure how this is gonna work. I came in trying to, you know, like very much thinking I was a little too cool for it, and then like luckily I had a great teacher for my first level that just, I don't know, level 1 improv is always going to be a little like camp counselor-y, I think, you know, because they want you to come back, you know, like, so there's never hard notes. But like I feel like my level 1 teacher was just so like, I don't know, he saw some promise, so like there was these hard lines that he would give me personally, but like in the crowd it was like, all right, good, and then it'd just be like, hey, you know, she can do this really well if you like set her up, and you know, like all this stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, no, and like I got embarrassed, and then I got over it, and then I went into it, and I think that's like, you can have that forever though. Like I remember having a similar group of people for 1 through 5, and that lesson not necessarily having to go across. You know, like some people get into it for the wrong reasons sometimes. You know, or like, you know, it's like stand up and improv. Stand up is about you, and improv is about the team, and I think some people like want to either strengthen their stand-up skills or vice versa, their crowd work and shit like that. And I don't know, that can be detrimental along the way. And the same thing works like in a restaurant, where it's like, I like working in a restaurant because then at the end of the night, everybody that came in was happy, and then they talk nice about their restaurant, and then more people come into the restaurant. And, you know, like they remember that time they had to spend $400. And this guy made him feel okay about it, you know? Like, that's my whole thing. And that's what I want. That's all I ever want. I just want to be good at it. And same with improv. But then there are some people that are just like, I need to have a bunch of nice shit despite having fucked up somewhere in the past. Now I'm a server. You know what I mean? Like, we all messed up. That's why we're serving right now. Nobody nailed it across the board and was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go just cater to the rich for a while. You know, that is literally no one's choice.
Sad. It always makes me sad that everyone that works in a restaurant is not happy.
I mean, we can't be, because we wouldn't be doing this if we had not made at least one selfish decision somewhere in the past.
I don't know. There's some things there are some places that you can work in a certain way, and some people go into it altruistically.
I like to. I don't like literally like I'm not mad at why I'm doing it. Like I'm not like I don't think I'm better than the job. It's like some people want to spend a lot of money and have a like memory they'll have forever, and I'm here to facilitate that in every way. And I don't care, like, generally speaking, it doesn't matter what you think I'm worth on that end. I just want to know that you thought I did a good job doing that, because you paid a shit ton of money for it. And
it's funny, too, when you even say that if a person's going into a restaurant where it's likely that they're going to spend $400 on a meal, they're probably not thinking about the money.
I know. And that's like this.
It's like I've never been to your restaurant.
It's an Andy
because
Griffith.
I can't afford that.
I can confirm that people sometimes spend too much money on restaurants and would like to feel good about it. Like that happens.
Well, my bread and butter is those people. Like, especially because I started working in fine dining in South Carolina at the first example of fine dining in my hometown. So like, it was Red Lobster was running the game, red carpet style, and then this place showed up and is an entirely different thing. It has a wine selection. Like we do bottled, sparkling water and all this stuff. Huge step up. So every guest I got was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? Like, this is pricey, and they're scared, and they don't know, like this is there's no cheddar cheese biscuits on the table, like, what are we gonna do? And so, like, I found, or I hit my stride by just being like, look, this is ridiculous, right? I'd never even heard of my own restaurant beforehand, before I started working there. I had no idea what it was. I applied there, everything worked out, that's the thing. So it's like, let me show you how to do this without going absolutely broke, So like my bread and butter was helping people acclimate to it. So at the restaurant or where I work now, that is what I told everybody. It's like, hey, you get those guys coming in flannel, maybe a cowboy hat, and they got to take it off. Send them my way, because like I like salt of the earth guests. I like people that are gonna appreciate what I'm doing for them, as opposed to like never looking me in the eye, like snapping their fingers at me, like tapping their glass, like that kind of stuff. Like I don't derive satisfaction from that. Not that I have to derive satisfaction from my job, but like I'm gonna do it better if I'm happy.
Nice.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a worthy goal.
I will rock your world if you can just show me the slightest bit of like acknowledgement on that end, And yeah, I don't know. I started serving on that level though. I didn't have to nickel and dime it at a Waffle House or anything. So like I'm a weird case. Most people had to like build up to that. So now they're just like, just give me money.
It's funny because to a certain extent that's kind of how I feel about like getting to improv. Like, I know that it would seem like it's like I'm not making millions of dollars or anything, but like I started out doing plays, and like you said Shakespeare earlier, it's like, yeah, I did Shakespeare too. Like I started out stage managing, and then like bit by bit found my way, and now having improv, I get to be a performer and a teacher and a stage manager and a director, and it doesn't conflict in a way like in the other theater world. If I decided to be a stage manager, I was cut off from all the creative ends, and so I did not enjoy that.
No, improv is like super DIY.
But you get the chance I get to use that type A personality thing, and yet I also get to create how, I'm going to figure out how to create this show and do this whole fun situation without it necessarily taking away from the whole experience.
Yeah. When I started doing it at the Hideout, it's just out of necessity. Like, everybody was doing everything, and it's totally different now. You've got all these, like, people around and a giant community, and you've got dedicated tech people, and you've got stage managers, and there's this amazing infrastructure that back in the day just never existed. So you were the stage manager. You were getting the costumes out ahead of the show. You were, throwing somebody up on the light booth from the cast to run lights that night. And there's just all these, like, you did everything. And I'm not a type A personality, so some of the stuff out of necessity we had to do marketing and organizing and, casting and rehearsals and all that stuff that's very detail oriented that I've never been good at, but had to learn how to do over time just because running the theater and making the theater happen, that's, 70% of the work. And then you get to do the fun stuff. Then you get to teach the class. Then you get to, walk into the room and do the show or, teach a corporate workshop or whatever it is that I actually thrill on. But
yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, since, as we're getting closer to the end, I did want to ask you one thing. When we had Roy Janik in here, he mentioned that when he started out at the Hideout, you were there. And I was like, okay, well, I think Andy might be the, first person I'm aware of, in the sort of current Austin improv community world, the, person who's still here that was part of an early level of the whole thing. Not only would I love to hear your initial experience, but who else among the current community was there sort of early on, just when it first got started, when the Hideout was run by different people and had a different format? Because the Hideout's the first one of all improv theaters, is that correct?
There was a theater called Comedy Sports / National Comedy Theater that Les McGehee ran.
Right,
and that one was kind of the original theater of the modern wave of theaters. And then there were some things that happened back in the 80s and 90s that kind of came and went theater-wise. There was improv at the Belvedere Room for a while. Robert Ferries, that runs the art section in the Chronicle, actually did improv back in the 80s, early 90s, I think. And so Les had Comedy Sports, and then Sean started the Hideout, and he's still around every once in a while, but he just kind of pops in and does shows and gets to fuck off afterwards.
Sure.
Shayna Merlin, who runs Merlin Works, was the original education director at the Hideout, so she was doing my job when I showed up at the Hideout, and my first improv classes were with Sean and Shayna. And then beyond that, the original Hideout crew, the troupe, the house troupe, was called the Heroes of Comedy. Yeah. Originally called We Could Be Heroes, but then shifted to Heroes of Comedy. David Lampy's still around. Jay Michael still does shows sometimes. A lot of the guys that were in Well Hung Jury back in those kind of 99, 2000, 2001 still perform in town. Jeremy Sweetlamb, Jordan Maxwell, Ben Sterling just moved back into town. Ace Manning just left town. So there's still a solid number of people. Lauren Buck, Nay Zen, is still around doing Big Bash shows pretty regularly. I came in 2001, and I took classes at the Hideout and graduated in the fall, and then started doing stuff with my college troupe and stuff at the Hideout at the same time. And there weren't a ton of people around, so it was easy to kind of get sucked up into the system and do more and more shows and play and Maestro and 6 Degrees and Gorilla and all the Johnstone formats that the Hideout was doing back in the day. And then at some point, things fell off a little bit. Shayna started her own operation at Salvage Vanguard with Merlin Works, and improvisers kind of drifted away, and Sean had a couple kids and got busy with that. So I was helping run business stuff and trying to keep shows going, and there just wasn't a ton happening. And then in 2004, we went out of our way to try to amp things back up again. I went out of town and I did classes at Bay Area Theater Sports, BATS in San Francisco, and studied with Keith there and met some cool teachers that I hadn't met before, and came back to Austin with some energy and was like, let's make more improv happen. And we started doing a show on Fridays where we said, hey, are you an improviser with a group? Come do this show. It's 2 troupes, and we'll both perform, and we'll try to get some audience out, and then we'll hang out and drink afterwards and watch each other. And we did a few of those, and people came out of the woodwork, and some other people kind of washed up in Austin from Chicago and then eventually New Orleans. And just over 2004, 2005, things started to pick up pace, and we started having regular meetings and put together an organization called the Austin Improv Collective and talked about how we could make more improv happen. And it was pretty much all at the Hideout at that point because Comedy Sports had lost their venue, and it was just shows happening at the Hideout for a while, and everybody played and everything and did a bunch of shows. And then once things started to get solid again, people started to spin off into new groups. Like Cold Town started their own thing, and then Tom and Asaf were in town and started the institution, and Cold Town spun off into New Movement, and all of a sudden there were 4 active theaters and 5 training centers with Merlin Works. So we